On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, a follow-up to last week's big Model 3 revamp story sheds some light on when we might see the updated sedan in the United States. We've got our first intel on what new goodies are due to be included in the imminent holiday software update, another country vies for a Gigafactory, and more. Greetings, friends. I'm Ryan McCaffrey here with you alongside Daisy the Boxer, and just below me, chilling out, is Zelina the Future Service Dog. It is the December 11th episode of Ride the Lightning, episode 384. I am just back from Los Angeles, flew back home this morning. I want to thank all of you who made it out to the Petersen Museum with me to check out the Tesla exhibit. Had a really good turnout for it. It was a really nice treat getting to meet a number of you and see that fantastic exhibit. I'm going to give you a little bit more of my commentary on what I thought of the exhibit towards the end of the podcast. And if you are a Patreon backer of mine at the appropriate tier, I did my deep dive thoughts on the Petersen Museum Tesla exhibit as this week's lightning round bonus mini episode. I do them every week on Patreon, so if that is of interest to you, you can check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. The Patreon is the way to voluntarily support the podcast, and I try to give you some good stuff in return for that support, such as that weekly bonus mini episode. Also, a quick correction from last week. The $3,750 credit on any Model 3 or Model Y that I mentioned on last week's episode, it is not restricted to just inventory cars, as I incorrectly stated last week. So if you are taking delivery this month on a custom order, if you're taking delivery in any way, shape, or form on a new Model 3 or Model Y here in the month of December, you will get that credit. So thank you very much to Bob from Austin, as well as a few other folks who called in to correct me on that. I also went out and verified that correction for myself. And again, my apologies for giving not quite accurate information about that last week, because of course my goal as a trained journalist and somebody that takes a lot of pride in doing this Tesla podcast and doing a good job at it each and every week, my goal is to be an accurate source of Tesla information for you. So I let you down a little bit last week. Another bit of good news, by the way, before I get going with the proper news this week. The first shipment of Tesla Model S's and Model X Plaids have finally arrived in Europe. I saw that on Drive Tesla Canada. I did also have a couple of listeners reach out about it. Drive Tesla Canada writing that the first deliveries should be starting soon as the Hogue transporter arrived in Zeebrugge, Belgium this past week with a batch of new Model S and Model X Plaid vehicles, S Plaids and X Plaids, according to Tesla ship tracker Morton Grove on Twitter. So I want to say a big congratulations to all of you who are going to be taking delivery, or maybe you just have, because a lot of you over in Europe have waited a very long time for these incredible new redesigns on the Model S and the Model X. Speaking of redesigns, though, let's get rolling with the news proper for this week. I've got an update on last week's big Reuters scoop about the revamped Model 3. This comes via Teslarati, where Tesla has begun preparing for a revamped Model 3 line at the Fremont factory. Teslarati writing, Tesla has filed for several revisions of the Model 3 lines at Fremont, according to documents found by Teslarati. In all, Tesla's GA3, or General Assembly Model 3 portion of the Fremont factory will experience reorganizing for at least the next several months, the permits show. Tesla filed and signed an application to build temporary tents that will house Model 3 body fitting and light repair operations until May 1st of 2023. It is far from the only change Tesla plans to make in GA3 at Fremont. In another filing, Tesla said it would demolish brake and roll equipment on the Model 3 lines while providing a temporary floor cover over the pits that store the equipment. All supporting electric and mechanical utilities are set to be demolished as well, the filing states. So preparations are underway here on one of the Model 3 lines. Perhaps not coincidentally, by the way, this past week, a Model 3 out in the wild with manufacturer plates, California state manufacturer plates, was spotted down in Santa Cruz, which is in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, but out on the coast, about an hour and a half from San Francisco or so. And that Model 3 with manufacturer plates was spotted with massive black custom bras on the front and back of the car. These were clearly designed to fit the car, very much a custom fit. And the thing about them is, contrary to a traditional car bra, I mean, you don't really see those anymore. Those are kind of really relics from the 80s, but a lot of you know what I'm talking about when I say that. But these custom bras are covering not just the nose of the car, but the entire front of the car, including the hood and most of the front fenders. And then the bra on the back is covering everything up to the rear of the second row door. So this could be covering up styling changes, or it could be covering up more cameras at the front of the car, and possibly certainly also the rear of the car as part of hardware 4. So the plot thickens on this. But anyway, to rope this back into Project Highland, which is, again, as I told you last week, the code name, that's the project name that's been assigned to this Model 3 revamp. So last week's Reuters report had said that according to Reuters' 4 sources, those 4 sources weren't quite sure when Fremont was going to make the change on the Model 3, only that Giga Shanghai was set to begin production on that revamped car in Q3. Thus, it's going to be either the same time or later in Fremont, and I'm now optimistic hearing that these factory retrofits and factory upgrades are going on now. I'm optimistic that Fremont's going to be ready to roll out that new Model 3 at either the exact same time as Shanghai, or hopefully at worst just very shortly thereafter, since they're making preparations at Fremont right now. Also, on a related note, one other thing actually too before this last note. What this says is that Tesla expects the 4680 cell supply to be not a problem whatsoever by the second half of 2023. In other words, by the time the Cybertruck is going into production. Because the Cybertruck, I mean, granted the Cybertruck will start slow on its production ramp, but you've got the Model Y getting 4680 cells as we speak in Texas, and now you will be seeing, presumably, this revamp, as reported last week by Reuters, the 4680 cells going into the revamped Model 3 as well. So the cell situation is looking very healthy. That's good news. And again, as I started a moment ago, on a related note, whether or not those custom front and rear covers on that manufacturer plate Model 3 were hiding, whether or not they were hiding a redesign, you have to figure that with the timeline that Reuters gave us last week, and that's, again, Q3 2023, that should mean that every single one of these revamped Model 3s is going to include hardware 4. Therefore, if this Model 3 looks any different at all aesthetically, to the naked eye, if it does look any different at all, you will be able to instantly identify it as a hardware 4 car. Speaking of hardware 4, the next story this week, we've got a very probable update on that front. I know I'm very interested in hardware 4 and when it's coming and what exactly it's going to entail. And this update is courtesy of Twitter user Tony Rivera and our resident white hat hacker friend Green the Only. Tony posted a letter that was made public by the FCC, and I have to say, after poking around, I'm not sure how or why this was made public, but it was. And the letter is this. It's titled Authorization Letter, dated November 18th of this year, addressed to the FCC. We, Tesla Inc., want to submit this request for our device, the model number, which was granted under FCC ID, blah, blah, blah. Here's the relevant bit. However, this device will not be marketed until mid-January of 2023. To avoid any unnecessary disclosure and competitive harm before our product launching, we would like to request the above exhibits, which were the user manual, internal photos, external photos, and test setup photos. We would like to request the above exhibits be held for another 60 days until February 7th, 2023. This authorization is valid until further written notice from the applicant. Sincerely, Cindy Lee, certification engineer at Tesla, and it is addressed from the Palo Alto, the Deer Creek, formerly the headquarters of Tesla, their space over in Palo Alto. Now, Tony said in his accompanying tweet, quote, Tesla is requesting a short-term a short-term confidentiality extension in HD radar documents, as it will be marketed mid-January. And then, that's where Green the Only jumped in with his 2 cents, adding this, quote, the classic Streisand effect is at play. Tesla now draws attention about something potentially major planned for mid-January, which is just a bit over a month away, ... like something that coincides with a sensor suite change, end quote. Well, mid-January, all right, let's think about mid-January. That coincides with the next quarterly earnings call, which will be the Q4 / all of 2022 earnings call. Therefore, it's fair to wonder now, is Tesla planning to announce the rollout of Hardware 4 on that earnings call? And as such, will they give details then as to what's in the new hardware suite? Remember, the past tells us, history tells us, that Tesla is not likely to announce that Hardware 4 is coming. They are instead almost certainly going to announce that it's here, that it's shipping in cars right now, whenever it is that they make the announcement, be it in mid-January or later, whenever that happens to be. So if that's indeed the case, and it's certainly just an if right now from what we can see, but it's looking like a stronger probability, and Green the Only sounded fairly confident about it, just if I can I guess I'm reading it between the lines on that tweet a little bit, which maybe is unfair, but anyway, from what we can see, this would be a secondary reason, I think, to offering the aforementioned $3,750 credit on the Model 3 and the Model Y here in the month of December, because in doing so, you would be helping to ease the future burn for folks who will have just taken delivery this month, only to have a brand new autopilot hardware package drop weeks later. And that new autopilot hardware package, again, in my opinion, that I would be thrilled to be wrong about, but in my opinion will not be able to be upgraded to from what's in the cars now. So stay tuned to ride the lightning in the new year, my friends. It sounds like we might get a very big Tesla year. We know it's going to be a very big year. Cybertruck, the semi-continued rollout, maybe the Roadster, or hopefully at least some information about the Roadster. You know, the Gigafactory is both hitting full volume production. It's going to be a heck of a year, going to be a very big year. And that year may get off to a flying start right in January. Next up this week, a feature that both myself and plenty of you who've called in have lobbied for over the months and years looks like it is about to come to fruition, and that is live viewing of the cabin camera in your Tesla. And that's not all, by the way. This story comes via the Tesla App Updates iOS Twitter account, which is at Tesla_app_iOS, if you'd like to follow them, who notes version 4.15.0 has been released. And again, this is the Tesla app for your iOS device. And we've decompiled it. Here's a summary of the good stuff, and then they wonder, holiday release stuff? So it will feature, number 1, as just stated, live interior camera viewing. Number 2, remote farting. Number 3, remote boombox. Number 4, setting a climate temperature for your Copilot. Now let me just hang on that last one for a second, because setting a climate temperature for Copilot, if I'm reading that correctly, if I'm interpreting this correctly, that is finally going to allow the front passenger to set their own temperature independent of the driver, which has never been possible in a Model 3 or a Model Y, and I'm not 100% sure about the S and the X, but certainly the 3 and the Y. It's whatever one of you wants, both of you get on the temperature front. But the folks who run that account note that the live interior camera viewing will need a software update on the car side in order to enable it, but the code for it is now there in the Tesla app. So one end of it is done. We're waiting on the other end of it. So to me, this is really awesome because it's going to pair really, really nicely with dog mode. So you can check in on your pooch. If you happen to be running an errand and you've got dog mode on, keeping your dog comfortable in the car while you're running your errand. You know, I was just talking about the upcoming Zoom app for Teslas on the podcast, a couple episodes ago, 2-3 shows back. And I said on that episode, I hope that we would start to see more end user stuff able to utilize that cabin-facing camera. Well, this certainly meets that criteria, and it will be a most welcome feature when it arrives. On the other side of the spectrum is the not particularly useful, but definitely hilarious new feature on that list. That would be the remote farting, of course. So I guess if you're picking up your parents at the airport in your Tesla and your spouse has access to the car on their phone, well, they could trigger those location-based fart sounds, and by location-based, I mean, which one of the 4 quadrants of the car, front, driver's seat, front passenger, rear left passenger, rear right passenger. So that you'll be able to trigger those toot sounds remotely through the app, which will certainly liven up the holiday season, don't you think? And finally, a slightly more useful feature maybe than the remote farting is that release notes for new software versions will now be viewable in your Tesla app. That means you will no longer have to run down to your car to read what's new in a new version of the Tesla software once that new build finishes installing in your car. So I like to see that. Next up, speaking of new features coming via software update, we've got a holiday update preview rumor courtesy of the folks at Teslascope. That's their Twitter handle as well. And these folks make it their mission to try and suss out this stuff. So they tweeted, Tesla holiday update? ? Here's a first glimpse. And they list Apple Music, improved music player you can move around and customize. I like that. MyQ garage support, remote light show scheduling, and the aforementioned remote emissions mode requiring a mobile update that I just told you about. New games. And then they say, and much more we can't share yet. So, hands up out there. How many of you have used the light show in your Tesla since last Christmas when it first dropped? And I'm gonna politely exclude my Model X owners out there who, of course, have had the light show for years now. But still, so I guess I tell you, I haven't turned it on since last year when it first came out, but the ability to schedule it remotely is pretty cool because if you are doing a holiday light show on your house, I know, shout out to my friend Michael, if he hears this, he dials it up every year on the outside of his house. You could tie it in with this now. You could get your car involved in that holiday light spectacular on the front of your house if you want to do that. So this now inspires me to fire up, now that we're back in the holiday season, to fire up that holiday light show once again, because it has been roughly a year since I've activated it. Anyway, on to other things here. The internet tells me that the MyQ garage support, it's Wi-Fi garage support. So the internet really likes this. MyQ, this is a big deal. It's effectively the new generation version of HomeLink. Now, my personal garage door opener is easily 20 plus years old. It was here when we moved into the house. So my rusty old garage door opener does not have MyQ support. But is this a feature, I should say, that most new garage door opening systems have built in now? I mean, I have to imagine that's the case. And if so, this is going to be awesome, since obviously Tesla stopped shipping cars with HomeLink built into them, a few years ago now. I was lucky to get it built into mine. You know, you can still order it and get it installed at a service center. They got to take your front fascia off and then mount it up in the front of the car, the sensor. But you can get it, but this could solve that problem for a lot of people out there. And finally, the other thing I want to tap into on this, certainly in my line of work, I would not let this story go by without addressing new games, new video games in the car. I wonder what those games are, because it could be anything, but I'm going to aim high here and say that hopefully this is finally the long-awaited Witcher 3 and or Cyberpunk 2077. That at least Cyberpunk, I saw it running in the new Model S back at the Plaid launch event a year and a half ago. So and we know from Elon Twitter updates over the months that Tesla has been working on a full sort of Steam integration to try and effectively run Steam straight through the car, which would make a lot of games work, not just Cyberpunk and or The Witcher 3. But what I can tell you from my day job is that the developer of those two games, it's the same developer that made them both. The Witcher 3 is from 2015, and Cyberpunk 2077 is their most recent game that shipped in holiday 2020, 2 years ago. And, holiday 2021. It's been 1 year, not 2 years. But the developer of those games, CD Projekt Red, let's just say that Cyberpunk had some issues when it came out. And the good news is that CD Projekt finally got on top of all of those issues this year. So hopefully they have had some bandwidth to tackle this. Oh, and by the way, I had it right the first time. It was 2 years ago. It was holiday 2020, but it took them quite a while to get Cyberpunk sort of back to where it should have been when it originally launched. But anyway, so what's going on besides... So Cyberpunk's been fixed, basically. And just this coming week, CD Projekt Red is shipping a free next-gen update for The Witcher 3, which, again, originally came out in 2015. So the timing here could be good. Perhaps the Teslas are going to get that version of The Witcher 3, the newer, shinier, prettier version of the game. Now, if either of these does get released for the Tesla fleet, I do have to wonder if they're going to require MCU 3, which, of course, is available in every new S, every new X, and newer 3s and Ys, because both of those games, even 2015's The Witcher 3, are very, very demanding games in terms of CPU and GPU horsepower. They are by far more computationally demanding than any game Tesla has put in the car yet, by quite a lot. I mean, Cuphead is the next closest thing, I would say, in terms of that computational demand, that stress it would put on the MCU. But The Witcher 3, and in particular Cyberpunk 2077, those are major, recent, Cyberpunk, a recent AAA game. So if indeed it's going to land in our cars, or some of our cars, not mine, that will be really, really cool. Next this week, South Korea is willing to offer tailored benefits to Tesla in order to secure a Gigafactory in their country. I saw this story on Drive Tesla Canada, who writes, South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol confirmed that the country is willing to offer tailored incentives to Tesla to set up a Gigafactory there. In an interview with Reuters, President Yoon said this, quote, "If Tesla, SpaceX, or other companies are considering more investment in Korea, including constructing a Gigafactory, the government will do our best to support the investment. We are preparing a tailored approach to grant some advantages to these specified companies." End quote. The interview came after South Korean officials met with Elon Musk and other senior Tesla executives just a couple weeks ago. One of the major talking points was the labor situation in the country. South Korea is known for its militant unions, and President Yoon reaffirmed his goal to establish the rule of law to eliminate the risk of unfair labor practices to the Tesla team. Well, whatever order the next Gigafactories happen in, we know that Tesla needs more of them around the world in order to reach its very lofty production goals, which by now you've heard me say enough times, you know it, 20 million cars per year by the year 2030. I mean, Tesla probably has a lot of things that they take into consideration when they're deciding on where to put the next Gigafactory. Personally, I would put my money on Canada being the next one at this point, based on the recent report that I told you about in that department. And it's not just because we've already heard about Ontario's big push to make it happen, Ontario specifically, the province of Ontario. Honestly, the reason I think that Canada is the front runner for the next one is the Cybertruck. Because the Cybertruck isn't going to be made or sold in South Korea, but it is going to be made and sold in North America. That truck will probably do very well in Canada. I mean, its ruggedness, most definitely including its rust-proof stainless steel body, is a perfect fit for the rather harsh cold winters of Canada. Thus, I could certainly see a Canadian Gigafactory opening up to produce, yes, more Model Ys, but also Cybertrucks for Canada, and maybe they would make some for the US as well, and thus easing the burden on Giga Texas and increasing the overall production volume of both of those cars, but in particular, increasing the production volume of the Cybertruck, which you may recall I got to ask Elon about back at Battery Day in 2020, and his response to me at that time was that he said he saw the total run rate for the Cybertruck when it's fully ramped up to be about 250,000 to 300,000 trucks per year. If that number needs to go up, well, a Canadian Gigafactory could definitely increase that number. And so ultimately, I don't really think this is any kind of a competition between Canada and South Korea necessarily. It's more just who's going to get a Gigafactory first and who's going to have to wait a bit longer. Finally this week, like Disney's 1970s vision for the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, aka Epcot, Las Vegas is putting together a Tesla neighborhood. The tip of the cap goes to Drive Tesla Canada on this as well. That's where I first saw it. They write, a new project called The Arches in Las Vegas is launching a community of Tesla-powered homes in Sin City. The project includes 51 new homes. Is that a nod to Area 51 or just a coincidence? I don't know. Anyway, back to the story. Each coming with the following installed: solar panels, Tesla Powerwall, and 2 EV charging stations. In its advertising, builder Lennar has said this to prospective buyers, quote, "The Arches is a unique Lennar community featuring included solar panels, the Tesla Powerwall, and 2 universal EV chargers at each home site. All combined, these features make The Arches a net zero solar community." Lennar Division Vice President Joy Brodel had this to say about the new development, quote, "With incredible energy-saving initiatives and well-designed floor plans, The Arches has something for households at any stage in life. This community is ideal for anyone looking to live a more eco-conscious lifestyle and take advantage of the year-round sunshine that the Las Vegas Valley has to offer," end quote. Well, this is really cool, and I love the experiment. that's being conducted here. Although, I guess it's not even really an experiment, because it's not like there's anything being tested here. Everything works. We know what this is going to result in. But I will say the awesome next level up version of this would be to make it not just a net zero community. That's good, by the way. But the next level up would be to make it a completely zero emissions community. I'm talking no internal combustion engine cars allowed, only EVs. There'd be no oil stains on the roads, on the neighborhood roads or driveways. That would be something you don't see ever. Although, well, okay, maybe not. You'd still have service vehicles like garbage trucks coming through. Well, all right, maybe I'd have to abandon that portion of this little fantasy, but you could go electric appliances powered by those solar panels. You could go electric and battery-powered tools and things like lawnmowers. I mean, I guess you can't really force. It's not like you can force everyone to not use any gas-powered things at all. But maybe, I don't know, maybe you could get people to willingly sign an agreement or something in order to live there. But I don't know. Regardless, that would be awesome to see. But what is going on for sure is that I applaud the builder here, Lennar, for putting this green energy project together. And I'll say, I mean, I'd have to take a closer look at the homes themselves, and it's a hypothetical anyway because I'm not planning to go out of the area. But if I were looking to move to Las Vegas, I would absolutely consider this, because this could be you could get a bunch of fellow green energy, potentially fellow Tesla enthusiasts living in that neighborhood. You could have maybe make some friends doing that. All right, that is everything I've got for you in the world of Tesla news for this week. But stick with me. There is plenty more podcasts to go. It's your Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls from you guys coming up right after this. Before I get to that Ride the Lightning hotline, a reminder that $100 off discount code, which is Lightning, remains available if you'd like to get an extended warranty on your Tesla through accelerateauto.com and their XCare extended warranties for EVs. These guys are former Tesla folks. They have stepped up to offer an extended service agreement where Tesla no longer does. So MCU replacements, onboard computer systems for the 3 and the Y, door handles for the older S, AC and HVAC issues, air suspension in the older S's and X's, and more are all covered by their extended service plan once your 4-year, 50,000-mile factory warranty is up. XCare is built specifically for EVs and offers coverage for up to 10 years and up to 175,000 miles with as low as a $100 deductible. I've got a 3-year, 40,000-mile extended service plan myself. They also offer leasing for customers, businesses, public entities, etc., that are looking for something a little more bespoke. In fact, unlike Tesla's leases, Accelerate allows you to buy the car at the end of the term if you so choose. Learn more and find the right extended warranty plan for you and your Tesla at accelerateauto.com/xcare. It's spelled XCELERATEAUTO.com/XCARE. And again, don't forget to use that discount code LIGHTNING for $100 off your policy. Time for the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's your time to shine, your phone calls. If you've got a question, comment, or discussion topic for the podcast, give me a call. There are 2 easy ways to do that. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software. Record your question. Please try to keep it to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many people each week as possible. And then email that file to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can just call and leave a message on the Ride the Lightning hotline anytime, day or night, 24/7. It's a toll-free number. Dial it, 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they are special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. Let's kick it off with Jerry from Texas.
Hey Ryan, this is Jerry Andrews from Coppell, Texas. I'm calling about the active noise canceling feature that has been improved recently with software updates. I have a new Model S I took possession of in late September of this year after trading in my 2016 Model X, and my goodness, the improvement to the build quality from 2016 to now is really off the charts. Couldn't be happier. But on the noise canceling feature, have you ever had a set of Bose headphones or other active noise canceling headphones? And if you turn on and off the switch from those headphones, you get like a shoo kind of feeling, and there's almost a light pressure on your eardrum that is the active noise canceling working. So the Model S now has that sort of feeling when you are driving. There is a quietness, and I really notice that it cuts out the low sounds, like the sounds that your tires on the freeway make. So it's taken a really quiet car and made it even quieter. Very, very pleased with that. I noticed that when you move your head forward to like away from the headrest to up by the steering wheel, it almost quits having that feature at all. And you can move back and forth, and it's like turning your headphones on and off. I also wanted to point out that in a recent update, the Model S has added karaoke back. Yay! That's fun. Model S owners want to have fun too. So Ryan, thank you for everything you do. Keep up the great work. I look forward to hearing from you every week, like so many of us do. And good luck with your new service puppy. And talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Jerry, thank you very much for this. First of all, because you were kind enough to share first-hand impressions of the new active noise cancellation feature in the new Model S, as I had asked for. And second, thank you for confirming that karaoke is back in the new S and the X. A caller, I believe it may have been Gil in San Diego, if memory serves me, had noticed that it was gone a while back, and then none of us, there were even some callers, none of us could figure out why, and we never did get any explanation on that from Tesla. So it's great to have that feature restored. But back to the active noise cancellation. I am thrilled to hear that it works so well. I'd love to try it out sometime, just to compare it to my Model 3. Again, I know the S is a much more expensive car. I just would love to have a point of comparison just to see what it's like. Now, granted, my personal history, I'm not exactly coming from the quietest of cars. I had a 2006 Infiniti G35 Coupe that was definitely more about performance than luxury, despite the fact that Infiniti is the, luxury brand of Nissan. And then, of course, I had my 1982 DeLorean for 12 years. Although I will say, the DeLorean was surprisingly well insulated sound-wise. It was a pretty comfy, nice ride, both in terms of the physical ride quality, but also the sound, now that I think back on it. But anyway, I know that my Model 3, especially my older Model 3 that doesn't have the double pane front windows like the newer ones do, I know that my 2018 Model 3 isn't the quietest ride in the world, but I have to say it doesn't really bug me unless it's really windy outside. Then I do notice the wind noise. But this is another feature now on the new S and X that really helps differentiate those two cars from the 3 and the Y. Remember how narrow the gap was between the S and the 3 and then later the X and the Y was for a while, particularly right after the Model 3 came out. And if you remember, Model S sales dipped. The Model S sales suffered as a result back then, if you recall. But now that gap between the cars has definitely been widened again, as you would hope for a $105,000 car compared to a car in the form of the Model 3 that's that starts at half that price. And how interesting that the active noise cancellation seems so precisely calibrated to the exact spot up against the headrest that your head goes, and that you can sort of quote unquote break it if you dip your head forward. So Jerry, thank you again. Your call was very informative. Next up is Sean from Woodstock, Illinois, responding to the story I did, 1 or 2 shows back about GM repairing Teslas. Sean's got a unique perspective on this. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey Ryan, it's Sean calling from Woodstock, Illinois. Actually, just have a comment about a story you just ran concerning GM kind of bragging about repairing a lot of Teslas at their dealerships. I actually am a GM technician, and I work at a GM dealership, so I thought maybe I could have a little bit of perspective on this story. One thing that I know that happens a lot is, people trade in their cars and end up getting something new, or we buy Teslas at auction. And actually, I had a customer recently that turned in a Model S, and I actually ended up fixing the door handle with a kit that I found online, because it wouldn't extend. Pretty common on the Model S's. But we do all sorts of other, repairs, stuff like tires and just used car inspections and stuff. And each one of those generates a repair order that with a VIN attached, and obviously GM's tracking that, and they're pretty happy about it. Why would it be GM over anyone else? I don't know. But do keep in mind that GM does have a lot of EV certified technicians, I being one of them. Because we had the Volt since 2012, and even though it's not a full EV, you actually do have pretty much all the same protocols working on it as far as safety is concerned. So it's not anything that's too out of the ordinary for a regular GM mechanic. But anyways, I just thought that I would call in and let you know about that. Anyways, I enjoy the show. You can keep it up. Thank you.
I really appreciate you sharing your first-hand perspective here, Sean. Thank you so much. It's one of those, I've got nothing to add. You're the expert on this one, and you've added to this story, which is exactly what we're looking for. A little more information, a little more context. Thank you very much for that. Next is Chris from Chicago.
Hi, Ryan. Chris from Chicago again. I, like most, streamed the Pepsi semi-delivery. I've been looking forward to the Semi for almost as long as the Cybertruck. I've been in the trucking industry for over, 20 years now, I guess. And trucks are the worst. They're so the worst. If you've been behind any number of diesel buses or vehicles, garbage trucks, whatever, you can't even breathe. You can't even have the windows down being behind them. They're terrible. And the equipment that we work on is diesel powered, so it's really no different. And it's frustrating to not have a better alternative. And kind of answering to one of your questions you asked on last week's show about will companies want to make the switch to electric semis versus diesel powered ones. And honestly, it's way less of an emotional opinion for companies than it is with a consumer buying a personal vehicle for themselves. Companies are going to look at the ROI of a vehicle, and they're going to look at the maintenance and how much they're going to save in fuel, and how much of a roller coaster fuel prices can be throughout the year, throughout the lifespan of a semi. So it's going to be a black and white decision for a lot of companies. I think a lot of companies are going to be extremely interested in it, and I'm excited, and also the potential of what the large battery pack in the Semi could mean in terms of an auxiliary power unit that can power a refrigerated trailer that they're pulling, rather than that refrigerated trailer using a separate diesel engine to power itself. The possibilities there are very exciting for myself. I'm really looking forward to it, and I can't wait to start seeing them in my area. Love the show. Thanks, Ryan.
Another excellent first-hand perspective here. Chris, thank you so much. And Chris, because of your perspective, I have to say, your optimism fuels me. Thank you for making me consider the awesome possibility of the Semi's gigantic battery pack serving as a power source for a refrigerated trailer as well. I had not considered that, but yes, that is a really neat, totally practical, real-world use case for the Tesla Semi. Take care. Thanks again for your call. Here's a friend of the podcast, Bill from Wisconsin, up next.
Hey, Ryan, it's Bill in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin again. Hey, I just had an exciting experience that I wanted to share with you and your listeners. I saw that the announcement that FSD Beta is basically going out to everyone who paid for it. I've been on the beta since a little over a year now, about 13 months. Anyhow, I just had an experience that is worth noting, not something that you would see on the city streets of San Francisco. But Kerbal and I were on the way to the grocery store, like my dog Kerbal, who you, as luck would have it, it being in the middle of gun deer season in northern Wisconsin, I had a doe run across the county road right in front of my car. We were going about 45 miles an hour at the time. And before I could even register that the deer was in the middle of the road, FSD Beta was braking hard to keep me from hitting a deer. And that is one of the most frequent car accidents that happens in my part of Wisconsin. So there you go. FSD Beta just saved me, at the very least, the deductible on my auto insurance for getting my car repaired. I just thought I'd pass it along. Tell Daisy and Zelina that Kerbal and I say hello and give them both pats on the head on our behalf. Thank you much.
Bill, thank you as always for your call. And what a great FSD Beta story that is. Car accidents involving deer was something that was a not uncommon thing back where I'm originally from in rural northern New Jersey. But we moved to Arizona long before I reached driving age, so mercifully, I've never experienced it. I have heard, though, that it happens really fast when a deer can just jump out and boom, you have an impact there. So if FSD Beta was able to completely avoid that accident for you, that's pretty amazing. I am so glad that you and Kerbal are safe, and as a bonus, your Tesla is safe as well. All the best, Bill. Thank you so much. Next up, Pete from Carmel, Indiana.
Hey Ryan, Pete from Carmel. I'm just calling with a follow-up to the full self-driving beta. Unlike you, I didn't have the patience to do the perfect driving record, so I just waited until the general release came through, which I got a couple days ago. You may remember Carmel has a huge number of roundabouts, and so I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to see how the current build takes roundabouts. And I had 6 roundabouts between my work and home, and so I can tell you that it did one roundabout perfectly, one sort of sheepishly. It pulled in at about maybe 15 miles an hour and kind of pumped the brakes a few times, and then the rest of them were epic fails. In one case, it actually disengaged the autopilot right in the middle of the roundabout, so I had to take over control immediately. So my message is nowhere near perfect yet, for sure. If you live in Carmel, Indiana, I wouldn't recommend using the current build because you're going to get frustrated, and it's probably quite dangerous unless you're really hands on the wheel. So anyway, I thought I'd just give the update. Thanks again for a great podcast. Really appreciate it.
Pete, I very much appreciate you sharing your experience, given that, as you taught me some months ago with a previous call of yours, that Carmel has the most roundabouts of any city in the United States. And in all seriousness, I'm totally serious. I think Tesla should send an autopilot engineer or two out to your city to spend a week or two with you. Not like necessarily with you personally, but with your town and your roundabouts. the same way that they sent a couple of engineers to Florida to work on Chuck Cook's famous unprotected left turn. Especially, by the way, since Tesla eventually plans to release the FSD beta in Europe, where roundabouts are a far more common encounter. Pete, take care. Thanks for your call. I've got one more call lined up for you this week. It comes from Robert in Texas.
Hey, Ryan, it's Robert from Texas. Hope you're doing well. I do have a comment about the new steering wheel and maybe the stalks being going away in the new Model Y and Model 3. I do think that that's going to happen. And the reason I think so is because I think it's such a great idea. I just got my new Model X, as you know, about 6 weeks ago, and there really is no need for the stalks at all. Once you get used to the controls without the stalks, it's just so much cleaner. Obviously, it's cheaper for Tesla to make the cars, cleaner for the driver, et cetera, et cetera. There is one area that I still think Tesla really needs to think about, and that's the horn. Even after 4 or 6 weeks, I still have not gotten used to the button for the horn, and I still think they should make the middle of the steering wheel, when you push it for safety reasons, the horn work. I just think that humans are just so adaptive to that, and that's a real thing that they should change back, I think, and forget about the horn button or have the horn button as an extra button. And, of course, that doesn't change at all the stalks going away. I do think the new Model 3 and Model Y will have a regular steering wheel, though. I do love the Tesla Model X kind of racing steering wheel. But I'm sure some people would rather just have a normal one. And I think, again, getting rid of the stalks doesn't depend on the shape of the steering wheel. Thanks so much. Love your podcast. Bye.
Robert, I appreciate your point of view on this. The good news is that at some point, you should be getting horn functionality in the middle section of your yoke, aka the traditional horn placement. Every new S and X built in the past year, since November of 2021, has the hardware in place for this. This is according to Elon, by the way. I'm not pulling this out of thin air. Somehow, though, we are still waiting on that firmware update. But then again, look how long it took for the active noise cancellation software update to arrive. But I mean, it must either be trickier to anticipate trickier to implement than expected, or it's fallen down low on the Tesla software team's priority list, or potentially both. But fortunately, that bit of constructive criticism, which you are not alone with, by the way, in my brief couple of hours with the Model S Plaid last summer, which again, I realize is not nearly enough time to get used to the yoke and the lack of stalks, I did press the horn button several times on accident while turning. So maybe it'll be part of the holiday update, if we're lucky. Thank you so much, Robert. Thanks to all of you who took the time to call in. I encourage anybody to dial me up, call in. You can potentially be featured on the podcast. I gave you the call-in information at the top of the segment, so refer back to that, or you can always check the episode description every week as well, where you can find that info. Stick with me, though. The podcast is not over. I've got more Ride the Lightning for you coming up right after this.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Sierra 117. You're listening to Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast. You know, that Cybertruck looks a lot like a warthog, doesn't it? Master Chief, out.
As I mentioned at the top of the podcast, I had the privilege of going to the Petersen Auto Museum to see the Tesla exhibit while I was in Los Angeles on business this week. And in fact, I meant to mention this at the top of the show. I made this the topic of this week's Patreon poll, which again is open to anybody. You don't have to be a Patreon backer. I try to put that poll up every Tuesday night. Been pretty good about that, not to jinx myself. And again, you can find that poll every week at patreon.com/Tesla podcast. And the poll was just a fun one, totally for fun this week. Which vehicle in the Tesla exhibit at the Petersen Museum would you most like to drive? And it was specified out of all of the drivable vehicles on display, because the next-gen Roadster, it's not the real drivable one. It's the white, just rolling mule mock-up. So the choices were, well, actually, I won't read you the choices. Unsurprisingly, 55% of the vote, because there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 choices. Of the 9, 55% of the vote, of the 150 votes, went to the Cybertruck prototype. 19%, this was a little bit of a surprise to me, going to the Model S Plaid Nürburgring lap car, which I did get to see, and it is, that car has had its interior gutted, its front seats replaced by racing seats, it's got a roll cage, it is, it's a serious track machine it's been, it set some records for Tesla at the time. So 19% there. 15% of you coming in third place voting for Roadster VIN number 1, Elon Musk's black Founder Series Roadster number 1. And then from there, 7% going with the 1996 AC propulsion T0, which I had never seen before, and it is tiny. That is a tiny little car, and it's clearly, it's a garage kind of effort, right? But that's what it was meant to be, and it spurred the creation of Tesla, and we wouldn't be here. We probably wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing a Tesla podcast. You might not be listening to one without that AC propulsion T0. So 7% there. And then just 2% of you said the Cyberquad ATV prototype. 1% for the original 2009 Model S prototype. Another 1% for the 2013 Model S P85 in Signature Red that was taken to the Motor Trend Car of the Year award. 0 votes, 0% for the 2012 Model X prototype, which I guess I'm not surprised by that one. This last one, though, I'm a little surprised by. 0% voting for the 2016 Model 3 prototype. I would actually like to drive that car. Arguably, maybe not over some of these other ones, but yeah. That was, I got to ride in it. I'd like to drive it just to see how it feels compared to the production Model 3 that I'm lucky enough to own now. So anyway, thank you all for voting in that fun poll. I'll have a new one at patreon.com/Tesla podcast this coming Tuesday. And then as for the rest of the Petersen, I guess I could boil it down, because again, I did 20 something minutes on this on the lightning round Patreon mini episode this week. But what I would boil it down to is, if you can make your way out to Los Angeles between now and mid-October of 2023, the exhibit's really, really worth seeing. It's excellent. It's just, the cars are wonderful. These are prototypes that, A, you might not see at all ever again, or if you do, it'll be exceptionally rare. And B, you almost certainly won't see them all together like this again. I mean, again, the original Model S prototype, well, let's go back. The original T0, the AC propulsion T0. Then there was a 2002 Lotus Elise that was Mule 1. It was an actual Elise that the young Tesla Motors, before they obviously produced anything, they bought from Lotus. It was a yellow car, and they took out all the, the gasoline engine, the transmission, the exhaust, all that stuff, and they used that as their initial mule to experiment with the very first version of their drivetrain. That's on display. The Roadster number 1, which you can see plenty of scratches and wear and tear on, like it got used. I mean, the Model 3 prototype, certainly the Cybertruck prototype is clearly the star of the show, and it's kind of positioned within the exhibit as such. But what's funny is, come June or July, the truck's gonna be out, and that prototype probably won't be quite as appealing anymore to your museum goers. But for the time being, it's your only chance to get, and I'll tell you, you can get pretty up close to the Cybertruck. Like, you can touch it. Please don't. You're not supposed to. Be respectful and don't touch it. But I was surprised when I was there were not museum security like watching over it like a hawk, and it was, you could get right up pretty darn close to it. So it's the exhibit's really good. It's worth checking out. It was awesome to see what the Roadster body, the new Roadster, will look like in white. Looked very sharp. I'm still team red all the way on that car, but the white looked nice. It's a really well curated display, and I'm not just saying that because one of the curators was on this podcast a few weeks ago. I was really impressed by it, and it's super worth seeing. So do check it out if you're in the Los Angeles area at all in the next 10 months basically. Hey, an entertainment recommendation for you. I just watched this last night. On Netflix, it is a new stand-up comedy special from Sebastian Maniscalco, who I think is hilarious. It's called Is It Me? And it's family friendly. I mean, it's not like it's not blue. He doesn't work blue. I guess I'll put it that way. And I would say it's not like there are adult themes in it either, really. I think he's hilarious. It's a great special, so I do recommend that one if you need a laugh. Hey, how about a pro tip of the week? Let's do that, of course, as I do every single week at this time of the podcast. Here's David T. from Syracuse.
Hey, Ryan. It's David T. from Syracuse, New York again. I just wanted to let you know we do have an update. Great news. After the sixth customer service call with Tesla, we finally got this awesome woman who literally knew exactly what she was doing, knew exactly who to report us to. We ended up giving them the order number with the RN order number, and they finally added the letter L in gmail.com. I just wanted to give you an update, but for about almost 1 month, I would say probably close to 10 plus emails and 6 customer service calls for letter L. So great news. They merged his account together, so he has the correct email with the correct car and order number. But wow, I just wanted to say thank you. Big fan of you and Daisy, and thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
David's referring to another longer call that he'd sent in before this that acts as something of a pro tip, and that is triple check your email address when you're making your Tesla vehicle order, because David's friend accidentally left the L in Gmail off of his, and it turned out to be a massive headache, as you heard there, trying to get it fixed so that he could get into his account and complete all of the pre-delivery checklist items. So make sure you do not rush through the process in the excitement of ordering your Tesla. A good pro tip. If anybody else out there, if any of you have a pro tip of the week that you'd like to share with me and your fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, I would love to hear it. Please call in the same way that you call in to the regular Ride the Lightning hotline, and I gave you the call-in instructions for that earlier in the show. By the way, before I listened to David's call, I actually took a bit of a break to wash the dishes after dinner, and I had the Sebastian Maniscalco special back on. I was rewatching part of it, and I should amend my statement earlier. It is super funny. I do recommend it, but there are some 4-letter words in there, so maybe it's not quite family safe, but do check it out anyway. Before I go, let me mention some friends of the podcast, starting with AbstractOcean.com. They've got 1 million excellent aftermarket Tesla accessories for any of the 4 Teslas currently in production, such as the 4th generation tempered glass custom screen protectors that are a perfect fit for your 3 or Y. They use an antimicrobial coating as well as aluminosilicate glass, which is the same stuff that Corning Glass uses for Gorilla Glass. So don't miss that. Don't miss the rear footwell lighting kit, especially if you got a Model Y. That's a nice little accent light you can put underneath those risen front seats, the front seats that are on the risers. Just take a look. They've got a ton of stuff. AbstractOcean.com. Pile everything you like into the shopping cart and use the coupon code RTLPodcast at checkout, and that will get you 15% off of your first order. Again, RTL Podcast, all one word there. Then there's the snap plate, which you can find at everyamp.com/RTL. That is the front license plate bracket that I recommend if you want or need by law to put a front license plate on your car. It'll snap on and off in seconds, but when it's on, it is on there good and secure. But when it's off, such as for a car show, if you're detailing your car, etc., it is not going to leave any unsightly anything behind, be it adhesive tape residue, which is what happens if you try to remove the front license plate bracket that comes with your Tesla. So again, check it out, everyamp.com/RTL. They've got it for all 4 Teslas. BudgetSafeSolar.com. Sadly, I have no update for you this week on my solar installation from Budget Safe Solar. Still waiting for the city and PG&E, just the bureaucracy, the red tape has yielded a week of nothing. So I hope to give you good news next week, but in the meantime, if you are considering solar, and sure, you're going to check out Tesla Solar, as I did, but if that doesn't work out for you for any reason, check out BudgetSafeSolar.com. They will definitely work with you to build a system that is perfect for your needs. They did that for me. We're getting an 8-kilowatt system, and that is going to produce 103% offset, if I remember correctly. It was just over 100, exactly what I was looking for. So BudgetSafeSolar.com, and if you do proceed with a solar installation on your home or business, I humbly ask that you use the referral code RTL. Nice and simple on that. Don't forget Immaculate Reflections. I want to send a shout out. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. I really hope. I did not ask this ahead of time, so I hope this is okay. But Patreon backer KB brought his, I got pictures from Jeff. In fact, I'm going to pull them up real quick just because it is his beautiful red performance Model 3. Jeff sent me pictures of it finished in the shop, all detailed up. He did the works. He went the full 9 yards as I did. Car looks great. So if you're going to be, and no doubt KB mentioned that he's a Ride the Lightning listener, because how else would Jeff know? And KB got that little discount that is available to any Ride the Lightning listener. Boy, it's like my mouth is in a hurry to get the show over with. But anyway, irdetailing.com is the website if you are going to be or are just living in the greater San Francisco Bay Area and you want to treat your car to some ultra high quality detailing treatment, whether that is paint protection film, whether that's ceramic coating, whether that's paint correction, or one or more of the above. Check it out, irdetailing.com. I promise you, Jeff will take excellent care of you and your car, as he has done for me for the past 4.5 years now, for which I am extremely grateful. Again, mention when you reach out through the website, irdetailing.com, mention, hey, Jeff, I'm a Ride the Lightning listener. May I please have that Ride the Lightning listener discount? And he will say, yes, indeed, you may have that. PureTesla.com/RTL, your one-stop shop for your dash cam and Sentry mode setups, along with those nice slimline wireless game controller kits as well, if that's of interest. But the big main product is that dash cam, that micro SD based dash cam and Sentry mode setup. The $49 kit includes a 128 gigabyte micro SD based solution that'll plug into the USB port in your car. I cannot recommend it enough because micro SD is a format that's built to do the constant reading and writing that the dash cam and Sentry mode needs. So grab that. It's free shipping anywhere in the US. That's nice. Or if you want to step up and grab a 256 gigabyte drive, that's $69. Again, also shipped free anywhere in the US. Otherwise, if you're outside of the US, there'll be just a modest international shipping fee on that. So again, the website is puretesla.com/RTL. And then finally, my Patreon. You heard me mention it at the top, but if you just give me a moment here, a humble moment to mention it. This is, of course, a free podcast. It always has been. It always will be. But I do put a lot of hard work into it. I worked on it while I was in Los Angeles on business. You know, as you can check my receipts, the show comes out every single Sunday, like clockwork. I think that's important. And if at some point you get enough out of the podcast, you enjoy it, you think, you know what, yes, Ryan, I'm going to support you on Patreon. The support tiers start at just $5 a month. And that'll get you, that's the sport tier. Sport as in the acceleration mode in the Model 3 and Model Y Performance. I name all the Patreon tiers after performance nomenclature in the Teslas. So $5 a month you'll not only be supporting the podcast, but you will get early access to each week's episode. Then there's the $10 a month tier, where you get which is named the Ludicrous tier, where you get the early access and that weekly lightning round bonus episode that's exclusive to that lightning round tier and higher on Patreon that you hear me mention at the top of each show. So there are more tiers than that. They keep going. Just check it out. I humbly ask at some point, maybe take a look at that website, see if any of it sounds good to you. Patreon.com/Tesla Podcast, Patreon. And again, even if you're not backing me on Patreon, I do have those Patreon polls posted every Tuesday evening there that you're welcome to go vote on as well. If you're already following/subscribing to the podcast on your favorite podcast service, great. That means the show pushes out to you automatically every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. But if you're not already doing that, please do so. I'm on all the major podcast platforms, and it costs $0.00 to do that. So just go follow me/subscribe on your favorite podcast service, whether that's Apple Podcasts, which statistically is most of you, but also Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify. I'm also on YouTube. It is audio only. There's no video on my YouTube, but if you do want to listen there, the show syndicates to my YouTube channel. You can find that by searching Ride the Lightning Tesla on YouTube. You should find my channel very, very easily at that point. I'm on Twitter at DMC_Ryan. Same thing on Instagram, DMC_Ryan. My email address, whether you're sending in a phone call or you want to reach out and write to me for any reason, is teslapodcast@gmail.com. And I think that'll about wrap it up, other than saying hello and thank you to the upper tier Patreon backers. I'll start with the grandfathered in plaid level supporters. Thank you so much to George Cassiopo, David Brander, Logan Willis, Jason Chalukas, Tim Hyde, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla owners of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, David Perella, Dennis Peak, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown. Jared was one of the kind folks that made his way down out to the Petersen Museum. It was great to see him. Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, the Tesla Owners East Bay Club, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, David J. Howes, Travis Krenzel, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Jonathan Zalesny, Ish, not Elon Musk, T. Kirk Lowry, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. And a thank you as well goes out to the Maximum Plaid backers. We had our monthly Patreon Zoom hangout last week, had another good chat there. Thank you so much to the Maximum Plaid backers: Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from Las Vegas, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Ulrich Lassa, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Watley, Eric Brown, Mark Eversole, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Michael Williams, Will Stedman, Mait Suaru, Derek Nesselrote, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Alex Brem, Tyler Smith, Corey O'Donnell, Matthew Graham Dronberger, Scott Gillis, Aaron, John Cody, Andre Kent, Joel Sapp, Kim Bay, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, the aforementioned KB, We Drive Tesla EV Luxury Car Rental in Oahu, HaloBengals.com, Chris Pratt, Ken Epstein, Doug Carey, and James Gregory. Finally, an extra big thank you and shout out to the Roadster in Space tier backers, which I realize isn't officially an acceleration mode name in a Tesla, but it should be. It may be on the SpaceX package Next Gen Roadster. I know that's going to be called, that's Maximum Plaid. Elon's already said that, but it could just be called Roadster in Space. And anyway, the Roadster in Space tier backers are Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, and Kara Weston. Thank you all so much at all the Patreon tiers for your continued support. It is your support that's able to keep me going here, because it is a not an insignificant chunk of my week that goes into the podcast. I love doing it, don't get me wrong. I'm happy to do it, but it is your support that really helps keep this thing rolling on. So with that, for snoozing, Daisy the Boxer, and, Puppy passed out quickly, and also passed out Zelina the Future Service Dog. My name, of course, is Ryan McCaffrey. This was Ride the Lightning episode 384. We got a couple of shows, 2 more shows in 2022 before we roll into 2023. Of course, the first episode of 2023, which will air on January 1st, as it works out, that'll be my annual Tesla predictions episode, where I will review my predictions from the previous year. I'll score myself, and then I will make some predictions for the new year. So we'll see how well or poorly I did last year, and then I'll make some fun predictions for the coming year of 2023, which again should be a big one for Tesla. I mean, every year's a big one, but 2023 especially massive, highlighted, of course, by the Cybertruck. All right, happy electric motoring, my friends. I will see you next week.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.